Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Books with Sam. Wanted to do a different sort of video than the first couple I've put out here. Just wanted to give maybe some insight, some tips to how I fit reading into my day-to-day life. I got 6 tips that I try to follow or tend to follow, if you will, on my day-to-day life just to fit in a bit more reading. But before we jump into the tips, just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone who's been liking, commenting, subscribing, watching my videos. This has been so fun to make these and put them out there for everyone to see. I think my first video is nearing like 400 views or something ridiculous like that. So genuinely, thank you for all the support. Now let's jump into it. Like I said, I got 6 tips here, or maybe not even tips, just things that I personally like to do or try to do on a day-to-day basis to fit just a bit more reading into my day. The first tip is going to be utilizing audiobooks. This may be a hot take at first. Some people may not think audiobooks are real books or they don't count as reading. I don't see it that way. I feel like if you're really engaged in an audiobook, you can get just as much out of a physical book, perhaps even more, as you're listening to it as the narrator intended it to be. That's sort of exactly what I did with Stephen King's It in October. I'd read that when I walked, or I listened to it while I walk, or listen to it over my lunch break at work, or in the car to and from work running errands. Little things like that slowly add up. So you go for a 10-15 minute walk after dinner and you listen to it one way to and from work. That's 30 minutes there. That's a couple of chapters surely, depending on the book you're reading, and maybe 15 to 20 pages of audiobook coverage there. That's something I try to do most days, to just fit in a couple more pages per day of the book I'm reading. The next tip here that I do every day, because I can't help it, is to have books you like lying around. As you can see by my background, I got 3 bookshelves. I got this tree stand looking one, this more conventional one with my little reading pot on top of it, and then another tree book stand right next to my bed. Safe to say that if you bought the book and you own it, that you would one day like to read it. So maybe this is sort of a stupid tip, but have books you would like to read or think you would like to read lying around, so when the opportunity arises and you're in the reading mood, you know where to go and you can grab it. I used this tip yesterday. I'm currently reading through The Count of Monte Cristo, and I was hitting a slow point in it. Wanted to read something different, wanted to read but didn't necessarily want to read that book, so I picked up one of my newer books. If you saw my car book haul, this is Thank You for Smoking by Christopher Buckley. It was sitting just right up on top of the shelf, plain as day. Picked it up last night, read the first 2 chapters, and that's 30 pages I wouldn't have read otherwise, just because I had those books that I thought I would like lying around. Second tip is sort of maybe goes hand in hand with the last one, but that is to read multiple books at once. And now I'm not saying to have one book in one hand and another in the other and going back and forth like this, but to me, I find, like my last tip, if I'm in the mood for a certain book and I want to read it, then I'll generally pick that up. Now I can't read more than 2 books at once. My brain doesn't function that way, and my books have to be pretty drastically different in genre to read multiple at the same time. Like this one is sort of just a fiction, maybe some humor and comedy in it, whereas this one is more of a epic classic tale. Writing style is completely different, language is completely different, and so I'm able to differentiate the stories better since I'm reading those two separate books at once. And depending on what mood I'm in, I can pick up the respective book and still get pages in. Fourth tip I have here, this may be a weird one or maybe something that only I do, is to read while dinner is cooking. If you're cooking up, and obviously this depending on what you're making, but say you're throwing some chicken in the oven with some roasted veggies and whatnot, you got to prep it all up and chuck it in the oven for 30 minutes. What are you doing with that 30 minutes? If you're watching a show or whatnot, pick up a book. That time is, you have to be, you can't be fixing with your dinner when it's in the oven. Utilize that time, pick up a book and read. Or on a different note, if you're sort of stir frying something up, browning some ground beef, you don't have to be fiddling with it at all times. You can certainly stir a pot of soup or mash up ground beef while you're reading a book. And yeah, that may be a little weird or a me thing, so to speak, but that's something that I do. I try to do. Sometimes I just order takeout and watch a TV show, and that's okay with me. So if I'm in the mood to read while I'm cooking, I'll certainly do that, get a couple of pages in, better than nothing. Next tip I've only recently started doing, maybe past a month or so, but that is to set screen time limits on my phone for certain applications that can suck me down the rabbit hole, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, things of that nature. I set it to, I think, 45 minutes for the 3 of them. So it breaks it down to about 15 minutes a day per app, which sometimes I go over these, sometimes I don't utilize that time fully, but it's just a good guideline to have. And more often than not, when my screen time is up, I'll just do something else, put my phone down, read, and that is sort of a little thing that can have a big impact on your day. You could, instead of scrolling before bed or while your dinner's cooking, hey, pick up a book, read a couple of pages, and doing these little things throughout the day definitely add up at the end of the day. Last but not least, the 6th tip here is I like to read for a specific amount of time, no matter what time I go to bed, before bed. Generally it's 15 or 20 minutes, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 30 minutes. It really just depends if I'm liking the book I am reading or if I'm at a good stopping point and I can stop and go to bed. It also has the dual meaning of sort of putting my mind at rest, and going back to screen time limits, limiting the screen time before bed helps me sleep better. Things of that nature. Like yesterday when I was not in the mood to read The Count of Monte Cristo, that's when I picked up this and read the prologue in the first 2 chapters in bed, about 30-ish minutes, and yeah, that was 30-ish pages I wasn't going to read otherwise, just because I wasn't in the mood to read The Count of Monte Cristo. So yeah, those are my 6 tips or things I do from a day-to-day basis to help me read just a little bit more, hit my reading goals if you have any out there. So I guess just to rehash, utilizing audiobooks, having books you like just lying around, reading multiple books at once, reading whilst you're cooking, dinner, lunch, breakfast, what have you, setting screen time limits, and reading for a set amount of time before bed. Now, I don't do these every day. Sometimes I don't do any of them. Sometimes I don't read at all for the day. Sometimes I read 0 pages, and that's okay. Some days I read 100 pages, and that's great and amazing. But you just have to be kind to yourself, and as long as you're putting your best foot forward most days of the week, you're doing better than most people. So follow a couple of these tips if you're looking to read a bit more in your life. Let me know down below what you think of them. If you do some of them already, maybe let me know if you can read multiple books at once and what multiple books you're reading at this time. But with that being said, appreciate all the support on all my current videos. This has been fun the past week or so, making these videos and speaking my mind as to some reading things. Let me know what other content you guys may like to see, some maybe potential video ideas. Chuck them in the comments and I can drum them up nicely for you all. So with that, hope everyone has a great rest of your day and catch you in the next one. Thanks all.